Here we are at the end of March 2022, and we're just getting started with the Zilliqa Observer episodes for the year. This podcast is the January 2022 episode, and yeah, I'm gonna call it that despite running 2 full months late. Today, we'll be hearing from Melvin Beemer, the founder of ZilStream.com, and talking about building on Zilliqa, the Zilliqa ecosystem as a whole, and what's to come next for the platform. In the next week or so, I'll get the February episode out as well to you, and then I'll start working on March. By sometime in Q2 of this year, we should be all caught up and running on our new monthly schedule. Hi everyone, I'm Chase Raz, and this is the Zilliqa Observer podcast on the TZO network. Welcome to the Zilliqa Observer on TZO. I'm Chase Raz, and this is our first episode of 2022. It's kind of hard to say, 2022. We'll call it the January 22 episode, even though I know we're here in February 2022 already. Look, I'm still a bear hibernating for the winter. Give me a break, right? Joining me today is Melvin Beemer, the creator and developer of ZilStream.com, the property that so many of us have come to rely on for making sense of our Zilliqa wallets and portfolios and the ecosystem overall. Melvin, thank you so much for being here today.
Happy to be here and happy to be your first guest in 2022.
If we could jump right into it, tell everybody a little bit about ZilStream.com. Tell us about ZilStream, maybe a little bit about what it does, but also where the idea came from and what your overarching purpose is in building the platform.
Yeah, I started working on ZilStream in February of last year, right after ZilSwap has been out for a couple of months, and I was using it off and on, but I got really sort of frustrated by how I was looking at token prices and token rates and how the market was moving within there. So yeah, I was constantly just writing something into ZilSwap, and it was at that time pretty slow as well. Right. So you're like writing an amount of token and see how much token it gives back, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe the rate is growing a little bit or it's gonna down a little bit. And yeah, after doing that so much, I just kind of got frustrated. And out of that frustration, that's sort of where the idea of building ZilStream came from.
It sounds like a common spur of innovation, and I'm so happy you had that frustration. I think you're the exact right person to have that frustration to then cure it for all of the rest of us. And it was, for those who remember it, it could be tedious. Now, there were some tools in the past, right? Zilgraph was around. Did you ever use Zilgraph to try to make it a little bit easier and use some of the tools that were there and think, you know, we can iterate, we can grow past this? Because they were good tools, but like you mentioned, a little bit slower, still a little bit cumbersome with ZilSwap back in the day.
Right. Yeah. So exactly. So yeah, I started slowly just building out graphs just for a couple of tokens in the beginning, just for myself. So I just built like a small graph for GZil and for Swap eventually when that came out. And then, yeah, I sort of started thinking like, hey, I could just bring this out because I see a lot of these people here in the community here on Telegram. They are sort of wondering like what's happening with these tokens. Where can I find the prices? Why are they going up so much? And that's sort of where I started sharing like, hey, I'm actually working on this and here it is.
And here it is. Now, so this is a year old, right? You said you began this in February of last year?
Almost. It launched at the 7th of March.
The 7th of March. So we're running about a year from, I would imagine, the initial development. How long did you put into prior when you said, you know what, this is going to transcend me. This is going to go and be something more than just for me. I'm going to open this up to the community. About how long was that development time frame, given that you already had some assets put together?
I think just to set the initial part up for myself was a couple of weeks to get it working pretty good. And then as soon as I started sharing it just with a couple of people in the community, I looked on Telegram and I just saw, okay, this person is talking about GZil, this third person is talking about Swap. I'm going to send them this link and just see what they think and see what they say about it. And sort of through their feedback, initially I had a lot of different tokens and they weren't sorted. And somebody said like, hey, yeah, but actually you mostly just care about GZil and Swap and some port. So could you just put those on top? And it's like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And that's sort of where that initial thing with the top graphs came from. And that's been in there for a while.
So would you say that a lot of ZilStream has been, I mean, you've put a lot of design work into it, and it is one of the rare examples of highly effective user interface and user design, user-centered design, I should say, in the crypto world. And for folks who watch the show, they know I don't give a lot of UI compliments out in the crypto land. So I want to compliment you on that. But is that something that was a priority for you when you talk about, you know, people saying, can you move this? Can you move that? Was the priority for you to make something well designed and look professional? Was it to serve the community needs based on feedback? What was the balance? How did you manage the balancing act between those as now a project founder rather than just someone who's making, you know, a dashboard?
Right. I think for me in general, when I build something, it's pretty important that it's easy to use mostly. So I come from the experience side of things first. I just want like the data is there exactly how you need it, not too much, but also not too little. And just sort of like, I like this idea of progressive disclosure. So where you just have like a little bit of data, and once you start digging into it, almost everything is available to you if you want to.
We'll get back to ZilStream in just a moment. But for now, Melvin, can we talk a little bit about you? And let me ask you about your previous experiences before crypto. Many of us know you as the ZilStream guy, right? Like they know me as the TZO guy, but that's not who we are at, you know, the end of the day when we're done with this work, if we ever are. But the question is, Melvin, who are you other than a crypto person, and who were you before you entered this space?
I really started building applications and websites like when I was like 10, 11 years old. And I'd seen this game that's like this point and click style RPG game where you're just like training your troops and you're fighting other people. And I so like playing that, I also really wanted to know how it was built. And so I started building it. I bought all kinds of books on PHP and MySQL, and I sort of started teaching myself how to build it. And I thought I could do it better. And that's kind of how I started my first product, and eventually made something similar and got quite a number of users into that. And at that point, I sort of started, because I wanted, at some point, I had people asking me those similar questions as I had, like, hey, how is this built? How did you do this? And so I started talking more and sort of releasing some parts of it to other people. So I just sent them the code and it's like, here you go, learn from it, deploy it yourself, do something with it. And so at some point I was 14 years old and I was running a developer community on how to build click games for RPGs. And that's sort of how I got started
running a developer community. That's something I can see. And so did that transpire into your early career, into anything? Did you continue on the development path professionally? You know, did you go the corporate route? Did you go independent development? Did all of that developer community and building the RPG, did that translate into your early career as well? Or did you pivot when you finally hit 18?
From that point, I always knew I wanted to do something in development. I wanted to build websites. I wanted to build apps. And so I started studying communication and multimedia design, it was very user focused and user design focused. And that sort of taught me early lessons about like how to build something that people want to use. Eventually I dropped out of school to work at Apple, and I worked there as a UI engineer for several years, working on Passbook and now the wallet application, basically.
So when I say you're one of the rare people who can create a really good UI in crypto, there's a reason for that. That's part of your background. That's what you did. Really, I guess we'll call that in the tech world. You worked in the tech world. You were at Apple, and that's exactly what you were doing for them, right? So it comes as no surprise that ZilStream looks so on point and professional.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of always been my focus ever since I started like really getting into that and knowing about always putting your users first and seeing what people actually need and want. And sort of that thought and that process went into ZilStream right from the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. I don't know if this is something you'd like to talk about, but I happen to know you are an expatriate, right? You are not living in your home country. Is that something that factors into your professional persona and identity, or is that just more of a personal decision that you'd kind of like to not address as much?
No, it's something that I started sort of traveling around like digital nomad style after I stopped working at Apple and sort of was working and helping different startups and businesses build things, mostly on a contract basis or as a freelancer. And that's sort of how I got here. I got traveling around and kept coming back to Thailand. And eventually I started living here. I sticked around.
And so you've been there for quite a few years now, right?
Almost 5 years now. Yeah.
Almost 5 years. Has it been difficult for you, just going to a completely personal level for a moment, has it been difficult for you being a digital nomad? Well, I would say you're fairly settled at this point, but having had the digital nomad experience and then settling in a country that's not your original home country, has the pandemic been something that you think is harder to manage, easier to manage? I would imagine you don't have necessarily as much of a support network. Has that factored into some of the development of ZilStream and the participation in various developer communities like blockchain?
Definitely. I think especially because of the pandemic and sort of just sitting here at my desk, not being able to do much, I just started digging into it. And of course, yeah, had DeFi summer. And then that's sort of how I really got back into crypto and blockchain and eventually Zilliqa as well. And yeah, that's really sort of where I was like, okay, I really want to build something on top of here, but I'm not sure what yet. And this is eventually what I did. Yeah.
So the desire to build something was there, but that merged with the other information product that you were kind of just offering because you were doing it for yourself. So it seems like everything just kind of came together and there was no master plan of sitting down and going, let me see, what can I build that's going to just completely take over the ecosystem? It was more of an organic evolution, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, I tried that at first. I tried like, okay, I'm just going to come up with ideas and try to build those. And I have a bunch of different projects that are like 10% started and then stopped again. And eventually I just ran against this problem I was having myself. And that's, yeah, where I really just couldn't stop working on ZilStream for the longest time.
Well, we should drill through those and let everybody vote on them. Which ones do they want to see, right? let's just make Melvin stay in isolation, working forever. This poor guy, you've done so much work in the past year. It's absolutely crazy. But you mentioned something about getting into crypto and getting into Zilliqa and getting into creating ZilStream. Were you not into crypto prior to the pandemic? Or I think for a lot of us, we may have tangentially been in. I mean, I was kind of in and out, but the pandemic is what made me jump very heavy into everything from stocks to metals to crypto. Is it a similar story for you, or were you here prior?
The pandemic definitely got me much deeper into it than before, but I got into crypto initially in like around 2012, 13. I was just
Quite
interested
early
in what Bitcoin was, and I sort of started mining from my laptop. Like it didn't do much, but it's just like fun to try out and to see what happened.
I remember those days. You could get a little bit of Bitcoin doing that back in the day.
Actually, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. And then, but it was just mostly for the fun of it. And yeah, I lost all my keys there. And yeah, it's something I'd rather not think about anymore. And yeah, eventually I got into like around the bull market of 2017. That's when I really got into like more just like looking into different crypto and trading them a little bit and losing a whole bunch of money, of course. And
we've all done that. Don't worry, we've all lost our original Bitcoin keys and we wish we could get them back. And we all lost money in order to learn how to make a little bit. But hey, you know what? I don't want to dig too personal on the financial side, but has that turned around for you at this point? I'm hoping you're at least in the positive now.
Yeah, for sure. I've been a lot smarter in making sure I know what I invest in and taking profits out when you have to. And yeah, of course, there's so many things like happening now in the DeFi world where, yeah, you can really put yourself ahead of the game.
So something does confuse me here. And you know, the follow-up question I typically ask of people is, well, if that's how you got into crypto, what about Zilliqa? But what confuses me here is what I'm hearing so far is not a normal path to Zilliqa, not something we generally expect. We don't see too many folks in the space, and I know we're still relatively a smaller space compared to other ecosystems, but we're not that small. But it's still rare to see somebody with a background in Bitcoin going all the way back to 2012, as you mentioned, who has big tech experience with Apple, finding themselves with Zilliqa. Typically, we see a lot more alignment with the Silicon Valley oriented chains and whatnot with folks of a similar background to you. So can you walk me through, how did you first hear about Zilliqa and what led you to continue the relationship, if you will, investing and ultimately building and running one of the most successful projects on this chain?
I think my initial introduction to Zilliqa is just me scrolling through the list of crypto and just checking out every single project, seeing what they're about, just
Which
very
one will make
high
you
level
rich?
basic stuff. Not even that, just seeing what, like, sort of the ideas behind them. Got the Zilliqa, owned some Zilliqa, and then just put it away and never looked at it until I came to the news of like Zilliqa is now launching staking. And that's sort of when I really got back into Zilliqa, started digging much deeper into what was happening and what it's about. And that's sort of, when I really started digging deep, and still mostly to myself. I didn't join the community for several months later, but I was definitely participating at that point.
Well, we're all glad every time we see a post from you. I think everybody's happy to see that post. We especially love when there are feature updates and all of those great things that you bring through ZilStream. But again, that is I think it's a story we can all relate to. We were looking through, have several coins, and all of a sudden Zilliqa just grows and grows and grows on you. But I do have to ask, because you have a tech background, because you're a developer, because you work with UI, in terms of your investment strategy, do you find, I joked before about which coin will make me rich, but do you find that the financial side is of heavy importance to you, or are you really one of the few people who are here for the tech? Or is there, I mean, of course there's a balance between the two, but what is that ratio for you personally?
There's definitely a balance, but I think in the case of Zilliqa, like, there's a lot of chains that are doing the same thing, and they're just copying over. It's like, here is Ethereum, and we're just doing the same thing, the same dApps, the same ideas, and we're just putting that. And I think what caught me to Zilliqa is that, like, they really were thinking differently in like how they were sort of deploying their platform and looking for different people to build on top of it. And that's sort of, I think, really what made me stick to Zilliqa.
One of the things that makes Zilliqa unique, or rather because they're unique as sort of a side effect, is there can be times in which we don't have the development that other blockchains have. And I think one of the key areas that has been a difficulty for the history of the blockchain is with decentralized exchanges or DEXs, in that Zilliqa chose not to make their own, partnered with Switch.io and creating ZilSwap. And can you speak to how that presented either opportunities or challenges? I don't know which way this is going to go, in terms of creating a platform, creating a dashboard, creating the type of tool that you've created. Do you think it would have been easier on a chain that, say, made their own wallet and had their own DEX integrated, like some of the current chains that we see out now? Or, right, like, what did that do to the development process for you? Did it open opportunities? Did it restrict some? Or does it not matter at all?
It's definitely somewhat restrictive, and I think it's for a good reason. It's like, if it's like a direct copy of a chain, of course, all the tooling, all the sort of basic ideas are already there. In terms of Zilliqa, they're starting like with a new language, the new algorithm behind it, and so things, of course, will take time to build more out, to build more of the certain things missing maybe. So that's, of course, challenging, but I think it's also exciting in the sense that it's something really unique and different.
But now we have multiple DEXs, and the number seems to be growing day by day by day. And I don't know if I have anything to say about that. I don't know if you have anything to say about that. Feel free if you do. But what about other DEXs? You recently integrated the XCAD DEX into ZilStream. should we expect the same thing? I imagine you can't, by the time we get to multiple DEXs and they're all over the place, I imagine that a team of one person, we haven't spoken about this prior, but you're a team of one. I imagine that you're most likely not going to be able to integrate everything from XCAD to Carbon to Mambo to Pintar to everybody out there. Or is that one of the goals you have? Do you see a future where ZilStream integrates every possible DEX on Zilliqa for as long as developmentally possible?
It's definitely the goal. Yeah, so a lot of work went in sort of transitioning from just ZilSwap to allowing XCAD DEX to be on there. But as part of that process, I made it so that like it'd be really easy to add many more DEXs and many more, all kinds of different token pairs. Sort of a lot of the complexity was in that, like, that everything was based around Zil and every token being paired to Zil. So as soon as XCAD DEX came around, it's like, okay, now all these tokens we have here are now all paired to XCAD. So there's no Zil pairs. And that's sort of where...
So good luck figuring out how to integrate that into your tool.
That's where a lot of the complexity came in, and where I had to build a lot of things around just being able to calculate that to a common currency. So Zil to Zilliqa. I like it's sort of how I still like ZilStream to be, is that everything is based around the price of Zil, not necessarily always US dollar. Right. So that even if the market goes down as a whole, you can still see that like this interesting trades happening still, even when the dollar value is down. You can still make sure that you're increasing your amount of Zilliqa at any point in time, basically.
Well, it seems in a way, it seems that it's at least positive that XCAD was the second DEX out of the gate in terms of integration with ZilStream, because at that point you have already solved that major challenge. And so if we have additional DEXs that come in that, like XCAD, are pegged to the US dollar or another stable coin, that hopefully, right, if I'm understanding what you just said correctly, hopefully could at least make the developmental process more manageable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's a couple of DEXs are already in testing phases right now, and I've had some earlier access to be able to start integrations. So both Pintar's Zil all DEX as well as CarpSwap are pretty much almost completely integrated already on my site. And as soon as they launch, they'll be visible in ZilStream.
That's going to be absolutely excellent. And so to those teams, congratulations on being close to the launch. I hope to talk to them soon. But, you know, for now, I mean, what a major accomplishment that your project is regarded as necessary for the launch of a DEX, right? You want integration. If you're building a DEX on Zilliqa and you're not talking to Melvin, right? The question becomes for the rest of us, what's wrong? What's wrong with you at that point? Look, I don't want to throw more and more and more onto you, but if we've talked about the integration of multiple DEXs, I think it's a little too early to start talking about how we respond in various projects to some of the newer stuff Zilliqa's coming out with, like the metaverse. And if you have anything to say about it, feel free. But my question will steer a little bit more towards, what about future integrations, not just with multiple DEXs, but have you contemplated or considered or given any weight to multiple chains? We see so many projects going multi-chain, using Zilliqa as a home base. Is that in ZilStream's future? Or does that even make sense, right? Is that something that wouldn't make sense for ZilStream?
It's definitely something I've thought about and I may do in the future, but right now I still feel like there's a lot that can be done still on Zilliqa, and where I can still add a lot more value and interesting things that are really useful for people to have. So at that point, I'm still focused on that mostly, and just want to provide the best experience possible in Zilliqa. And then, yeah, at some point, I may very well just say like, hey, I'm going to copy this over, connect it to another chain, and provide some of this value to different ecosystems as well.
And it makes me wonder, is that something that you would take an approach at because you were interested in another chain or saw a market opportunity, or would it be more data driven in the sense that, okay, we have a whole bunch of Zillicans that are using your primary service with ZilStream, and they're also using, right? Is that something you do data collection on, or go more? So again, let me put these three options out there: personal choice, data collection of existing users, or market factors. Which do you think would be the primary driver for some type of future expansion into other chains?
would probably be a mix of personal choice as well as just sort of community interest. There's a lot of people in Zilliqa and among the community groups that are talking about different chains that they're exploring and they're using dApps on and DeFi on. And I think sort of following that path is, I think, for me, the most natural way to get into different chains and sort of get users over there. Yeah, there's obviously a lot of different sites that have rankings of coins and tokens. And I think that's a sort of unique perspective and functionality when it's directly tapped into the blockchain and when it's able to do interactions with the blockchain. And that's sort of, I think, where I can really provide value even to chains that may already very well have something like a coin market cap that everybody's using already.
Right, and I thank you for answering that question and approaching it so directly, because there's still, in this day and age, in 2022, there can still be this very, militant approach to blockchains of it's Cardano or the highway, right? That's all my chips are on this one blockchain. There's still very much can be that type of an approach, and I think it makes good business sense for a project. We see so many projects on Zilliqa that are successfully becoming multi-chain. I think, right, if you're running a project on Zilliqa, it's probably crossed people's minds of what would that look like for my project. So thank you for approaching that. There do seem to have been some recent updates and changes beyond the DEX inclusion on ZilStream. And one of them that I'd like to talk about may not necessarily be where the viewers want me to go, but I'm going to go here. You've recently decided to add advertising on the front page of ZilStream. Walk me through the decision process here, because I feel like a lot of crypto people would be advertising resistant, if you will, but at the same time, it seems to have been a very successful, or we're in the middle of a very successful prototype launch.
Right. Yeah, it's something that a lot of project and token owners have been asking me for a long time. At this point, ZilStream actually gets a sizable number of visitors and page views, almost 5 million last month. So it gets a lot of eyes on it.
5 million page views?
Right, yeah.
And do you have a basis of what are you able to share within your project about, how that breaks down to users? Because I imagine people are like me and constantly visiting.
It's roughly 250,000 unique users, basically.
Very
so
good.
There are a lot of eyes
on that.
Thank you. There's a lot of eyes on ZilStream, and sort of it's like a very niche market. Like everybody that visits ZilStream is somehow involved in Zilliqa and its ecosystem. So it's a great way for projects to sort of promote themselves to the ecosystem and sort of reiterate what they're doing and what they're building and sort of, talking about what they do. And so it's always got me thinking, but I never liked the idea of advertising, sort of just because of privacy reasons. And
right.
So, yeah. So
and I think I think you've, chosen a way, sorry, I'm blinding myself with light over here, but I think you've chosen a particular way that is non-intrusive in the same way, because you mentioned everybody's in that same ecosystem, all the stuff you were just addressing before. It makes the advertising to where you don't necessarily need to be going and digging into personal data. People are on chain, and it can be more of a push advertisement rather than some type of pull advertisement. Is that somewhat of the strategy moving forward?
Right. Yeah. So just making like a small space available on the front page and on token pages. And what I'm looking to do, at least that's the plan for now, is to have one exclusive, I call it a sponsorship, for each week. So just one project, there's no tracking for them. I'm not recording any clicks or visits or whatever. There's no personal information recorded at all on who clicks on which ad at what time at what page. And I try to keep the quality very high of sort of the artwork that's used for that space. So I started just sort of offering this space for free to all kinds of projects within the community and creators within the communities. Like, hey, do you have something you want to promote? Like, it's at no cost, nothing at all. I just want to see if you like it, if it's useful to you, if it's working for you.
And when can we expect there to be some type of cost? Because project developers out there are going to want to know. And I also am curious from another angle. So the other reason I'm asking this question is because you did have a token launch previously in the past. There's the Stream token out there, which powers the premium features of ZilStream. And not financial advice, but I do encourage everybody. The features that you have in premium are excellent. I don't know. I mean, I can give you operational advice out there to all the viewers. I can't imagine not having the premium features of ZilStream personally if you're in the Zilliqa ecosystem. So on that basis, I'll say, yes, I suggest go get it. On a financial basis, right, I avoid that. But there are so many concerns that I have as a business person about how are you funding your operation if we're this far past the token launch. Of course, the token swaps themselves that happen don't necessarily benefit you directly in terms of operating costs for your fixed and variable overhead, server cost, your own time, your own development cost, tooling. Is advertising one way that can help address that? Or are there additional things in the works that are going to be able to help ensure that this is a sustainable, ongoing project that you can commit to or others can be involved with in the future?
For sure, it's going to help. I've managed to keep it pretty simple. The server costs and the server infrastructure is not too bad at this point. It's all pretty basic. But yeah, I'd like to expand, of course, and I'd like to do more and build more and maybe expand the team a little bit. So yeah, I'm looking for ways, and this is one part of it that, yeah, ZilStream can grow and do even more things.
Because I know from here myself, from TZO, we definitely wish you all the types of success, and that is one concern when I hear a team of one who's spending a lot of time doing this. I know your token launch was a while ago, and I start to get into those concerns of operating. The overhead really is what starts to concern me. So it's very reassuring to hear what you just said, and I really, it pains me completely to ask this next question. It pains me because we have established that you've developed this as a one-person team. We've talked about the integrations with other projects that you're, performing that work and seeing things before it launches to do yet more work. You've talked about scaling and growing and building out the platform, but I do have a question of what comes next. What else are you working on? It seems like an irrational question. Like the answer has to be nothing, right? But I also know, a developer of your capability, there has to be more mulling around in your mind right now and some plans moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. Like for me, I'm always thinking about things that I can build and things where I can provide value. And in some cases, those are very small things, like the community is asking for, or is always wondering, when is GSIL minting going to end? So I make this small little countdown and put it on the site, and just to try and help people answer that question very quickly. So I'm always looking in the community and seeing where can I provide value, and maybe I just spend an hour or two building this, and it will help people a ton to have this particular thing or feature. Things I'm looking at is particularly is the wallet area. Personally, it's sort of a frustrating area in the sense that it's not that user-friendly yet. No matter if you're using any wallets on Zilliqa or even beyond that, your MetaMask, etc.
Wallets are a point of contention, especially for mainstream adoption. Yes.
Right. Yes, I get a lot of friends that are into crypto and they're perfectly comfortable going to Binance or Coinbase and buying their crypto and trading their crypto. But as soon as you get to talking about DeFi, they're like,
Most people nope out, and you know what? For very good reason. I've made predictions that the browser extension will be dead within a couple of years. But that doesn't mean it's ready to die yet. So are you telling me right now that you are working on a wallet?
It's something I've been trying different ideas in. I'm not completely happy with it at this point. But I think a lot of the ideas of, say you do a swap on an exchange, and right now maybe you have to confirm that transaction, and you get like, it's a data blob of basically this is what it's going to send to the blockchain. Good luck. I'd love to sort of provide a lot more value there. So like, hey, you're interacting with ZilSwap. You're about to change 1,000 Zilliqa for this amount of stream. This is where the transaction is going. This contract, we know it. It's verified. So you know what you're doing. And I think that's where a lot of improvement can be made in explicitly telling people what they're doing and how much they're sending, etc., and sort of giving like that control there.
You're not currently happy with it. That means that UI developer side of you is coming out, right? That UI developer, you're looking for what's really great, but should we expect to see some type of ZilStream wallet in the future, or will it be a standalone product? Or how do you, I mean, is that something that's ultimately going to come, or just currently being explored?
I think it will definitely come and be connected in some way to ZilStream, especially because there's some crossover in terms of the portfolio features. And I think those features would also provide a lot of value to have in your wallet. So I think, yeah, there's definitely going to be a connection. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to share more about it at some point in the next few weeks, months.
Well, the Zilliqa Observer is always open for you to share any type of information that you want, because I will tell you why. And that's not a self-promotional thing either. That is simply the fact that Zillicans, we tend to clamor for any information we can get. We want to know what's going on. I think we're some of the, the folks I meet in this space are some of the most engaged and enthusiastic folks that I have ever met in any investment space or any community space. So anytime you have anything to share, just consider any of our social media channels yours. Whatever you want to put out there, we'll do it. As we wrap up with the last few minutes here, I would like to ask you a question about the interactions you've had with other projects on Zilliqa, because you've worked with, I would imagine, almost every single project to some degree, getting their tokens listed on ZilStream, integrating DEXs, working with Core themselves. Can you speak a little bit to your interaction with these projects and with Zilliqa and with DEXs, and just your general sentiment on the Zilliqa ecosystem?
Right. Yeah. So because of the website I have, a lot of the token owners come to me to talk about their token and sort of get it on the site. I need information to be able to calculate the circulating supply, and that's sort of how I get this initial relationship with people in the ecosystem. And yeah, I definitely, that ends up in like them asking me questions about Zilliqa or how other tokens are doing particular things, and if I could help them with that. And there's a lot of different things I'm trying to help people with whenever they have a question or something they want to know about the ecosystem, or how to distribute their rewards for liquidity or staking, or all kinds of those types of questions. And it's exciting in the sense that there's a lot of things happening in the ecosystem that are very different, I think, and that have sort of tremendous opportunity ahead. And yeah, you've got big projects with big ideas like Xcademy and Package Portal and Luna Crush, of course, that are doing things that are very different and we don't really see elsewhere. And they're really having tremendous success, and they're growing very fast. So yeah, I love being able to sort of follow along what they're doing, being able to having the opportunity and sort of the privilege to be able to talk to those founders directly. That's really been really great.
There have been a lot of questions and concerns about whether Zilliqa would be able to survive any type of consolidation in the blockchain space. Is this something that you believe is going to survive, or will any of crypto survive? Right, you can take this as large or as small as you want. It doesn't have to be just about Zilliqa, but your general thoughts on how sustainable, how persistent, our community is, but also the industry in which we operate.
Sure. Yeah, I think ultimately we're looking where crypto can really attract a mainstream audience, and that's probably through ways where they don't even know they're using crypto, and they're definitely not involved in any sort of technical thing. They're not looking at transactions and inspecting the transitions, as it's called, and the amounts of tokens that are going back and forth.
Well, you mean there are people who don't spend their entire day looking through transactions?
So yeah, I think we have a number of projects on Zilliqa that are sort of in targeting that area and looking for ways to really provide value to just an average user, and they may not even know that they're using crypto or Zilliqa. And so I think, yeah, because we have several of those projects, Zilliqa has a good chance of doing good things, I think.
So Melvin, I love to end with this particular question because I'm just not going to try to pretend that within a 40-minute span we can cover absolutely everything. So what did I miss? What are you working on, or what concepts, or what nonprofit in the world, the thing on your mind that you think, what I really wish we would have talked about is this. Is there anything else that I can give the floor to you about to conclude with?
I think we've covered most of the things pretty well. Yeah, of course, if people in the community have anything to ask or to say or suggestions for me, please reach out to me. I'm always available on Telegram or Twitter or wherever you find me. And I'd love to hear from people. I love to talk to people about ideas. And I think generally a lot of people in the community, it's a small community. We're all talking to each other. And I think there's still a lot of things to come, both from me and from many other people that are building.
Well, thank you, Melvin. Thank you for what you do in the community. Thank you for what you do in the ecosystem. And thank you for helping me make any sense whatsoever of my Zilliqa portfolio. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I mean, I would be absolutely lost. I wouldn't know what I have, where I have it, anything like that if it weren't for ZilStream. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the product you've made, and I wish you much success in the future. Happy New Year, even though we're into February, but this is the January 2022 episode of the Zilliqa Observer on TZO. So Melvin, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
For my final thoughts on this episode, I'm just gonna say it. The entire Zilliqa ecosystem owes a lot to ZilStream for some of the successes it experienced in 2021. Despite great tools like ZilGraph back in the day, the days before ZilStream and the days since ZilStream on the Zilliqa blockchain are like night and day, drastically different. The wave of NFT projects and dApp projects that we know and love today likely wouldn't have seen much of the volume they experienced without a tool like ZilStream providing the at-a-glance information to inform and drive trades. While the idea of a ZilStream wallet seems to be just R&D right now, with no guarantee of becoming a product, and no in-depth details on what form or shape the wallet could take, I have to say this. If it does happen, watch out. Melvin has more experience and knowledge than most blockchain executives I've ever met, and the Zilliqa ecosystem is truly lucky to have him among our ranks. So thank you, Melvin, thank you, ZilStream, and I cannot wait to see what you do next in this space or in any other.